All right, so welcome to the webinar on the OABC PPP framework for effective social media marketing, coming all the way from Edureka. My name is Al-Amin Sharfuddin. I am a social media pirate. I have been in the digital marketing field for the last 5 years and have been in the marketing field for the last 10 years. I graduated out of ISB, and since then I've been in the digital field, in the display publisher side, on to retargeting, handling all e-commerce companies, help startup brands figure out what they should be doing with social media. So it's been exciting times, and it just gets more exciting with the day. And so that's my credentials. So with respect to today's session, in terms of this funny name, right? I mean, you would be like, what would this framework be? The approach that we're going to follow for the webinar today is more a question approach, where I'm not going to throw content on you, but rather I'm going to leave you with questions under each part of this framework, where you will be able to figure out, what is the questions that I need to have answers for, and some of the possible wrong answers as part of this framework that we could discuss as part of the session. Anyway, as we go through the session, there is the question box that you guys see in your webinar window. Please feel free to kind of knock in questions at any point in time. If I find it relevant while during the discussion of the webinar, I'll go ahead and answer it straight up for you. And if it's not, I'll keep it for the end of the session, where we could go through the list of questions, right? So keep the questions coming, and because obviously I will not be able to hear you guys. This is a one-way broadcast for me. I feel as good as an RJ here, with all the music and stuff. So let's dive right into what we are set up for today, right? So why do we need a framework, right? In terms of the agenda itself, what is that we're trying to accomplish? What is the need for a framework? What is this term, OABC PPP? And all of it, I can't stress as to what is the importance of social media for existence. And of course, with social media's existence comes the target audience requirement as well. So the question one, which sets the base for the agenda, I promise you that by the time we are done with this session, you would be able to stand tall in front of any brand or in front of your company handling social media efforts. You were basically talking 30,000 feet instead of going directly into executionary part of social media. You need a framework because you can be proactive, you ensure sustainability of efforts, you can keep track of everything that's happening with social media. You basically look smart in your job, right? So as you know, like the most overused or abused term is a framework, but this is as simple as it gets for you to be on top of things when it comes to social media marketing. This is the only one thing that you need to know. This is the only thing that you need to ingest for you to basically swipe through all that's happening on the social media, and then you can sit back and relax. Yeah. So what is the genesis of this name, right? OABC PPP. Now, the best way for you to remember this is basically O, the beginning of awesome, right? So O is like the O of the framework. The beginning is ABC of everything, and awesome for 3, PPP, right? So think of this for people who still don't understand. Okay, what is the requirement of a framework? Why should I have this framework as part of my social media marketing efforts? It basically can get you started, or it can get you sustain what you've been doing and make tweaks to make it wholesome, or you can see the complete end of it in terms of the complete social media marketing journey. So you need to see at which part in time. So if you want to start today, excellent. You get started with the framework, answer these questions, and get started. If you're already into doing something on social media marketing, then you go ahead and attempt the same questions and see which of them you've failed or you've not yet thought about. And if you've already done something in the past, these questions still let you reevaluate how effective you were in the past, right? So let's jump into the first one. The objective. O stands for the objective. Here are the questions that definitely come up when you are using the objective part of the framework, right? First, why do I need to be on social media? Now, the most commonly heard answers for this is, my competitors are there, everyone's on social media, I just need to be there. Oh, it's part of my JD, it's part of my, it's part of the list of tasks that I've been given. I mean, all of this, you're setting yourself already for failure. These are the possible wrong answers, right? But the kind of answer that you need to have will be followed about what are my expected outcomes. So when you answer, why do I need to be on social media, you should be ready to saying that what am I expecting as outcomes. Here is a good example of that. People come and say, I need to improve my upper funnel of people, my upper funnel of audience. What is the upper funnel of marketing or audience, right? Now, I know that if 100 people are coming to my website, 2% of it is converting, which means 2 out of 100 who come onto my website are ending up buying my product, which means I need more people to come on my website, which means I need more people to understand my brand or know my brand. Then I know that my expected outcomes is to increase the number of people who are coming onto my website, right? So that's a good example of an outcome, saying that I want more people to know my brand. How will I measure success? Yeah, here is continuing on the previous example. Let's say I measure success by seeing that how many of the people that social media is giving me are actually converting. Let's say I find in general 100 people, 2% out of 100 converting on my website. Then I suddenly see that 100 people coming from social media, there are 5 people converting, which means I see that the conversion rate has increased. Now you're talking numbers, so I'm measuring conversion rates. So this is a good example of what is the measurement that we'll use for success. And the benefits. What are the benefits I'm expecting to get, right? In terms of benefits, it ties back to why do I need to be on social media, because these two questions go hand in hand. So when you're talking about why do I need to be on social media, you have to tie in the benefits you are expecting as part of your presence, right? So these are sample questions. As I said, you will get more. You will definitely get more questions that you can add up to this framework of objective. But if you start up with these set of 4, I mean, you're set in terms of what you have to do as part of setting the objective itself. So you answer these questions, you say that, why do I need to be here? What are my expected outcomes? How do I measure the success as part of these outcomes? And what are the benefits I'm getting? All right, so I see more people have been joining. So just kind of set the stage. We are in the first part of the framework, the objective part of the framework. The framework is O, A, B, C, PPP, O, the beginning of awesome, as I would call it. There is the questions box in your GoToWebinar. Please feel free to knock in your questions there. I will take it during the session or as I go ahead in the session. Now, second, the immediate thing that you need to answer after setting these objectives is directly the audience. See, all of us are social media marketers anyway, whether you are already on the job, you're already doing this function, you're already a marketer the moment you started putting a post about yourself on Facebook, right? So in this case, the immediate question, I can't stress how important audience is, because many people directly jump into the channels and start doing things without even understanding which is the audience that they wish to reach. The power social media has more above any other channel, like display, paid search, affiliate, video, is the ability to define this audience. It's the ability to reach this defined audience. It's unbelievably crazy the amount of options you get. So after setting the objective, the immediate homework that you have to start answering is, who is my target audience? Right? And when I say who's my target audience, it's based on what the brand you're representing or which company you're representing, or for a particular product or service, you know that there are certain consumers of this. And that basically fits into this block of target audience, right? Now, second is, what channels are they in? Channels is a very When I say channels here, basically, so Facebook is a channel, Twitter is a channel, Vimeo is a channel, SlideShare is a channel. There are umpteen number of channels which are basically publishers of social media, right? Now, you need to figure out which channels are this target audience present, right? So that's number two that you will have to seek out the answer. Number three is, what is their expected behavior? Or see, one thing is what behavior are they already exhibiting, and then the next question is, what behavior are you expecting? So one is, they are exhibiting a certain behavior, which is your target audience on these channels, and then there is a certain thing is, what are you expecting them to behave? Now, this is your holy grail for the entire framework that follows. If you get this part right, which is setting up questions for your audience, defining them, figuring out the behavior and their expected response, you are set, right? So far what you've done is you've defined the objective, then you've gone ahead and figured out who the audience is, and bang, there is nothing that's not happening without money, right? So you need to be set realistic expectations, which is why this comes very early in the ladder. Just after defining audience, you're like, hey, boss, how much money are you going to give me to kind of set this up? So you figure out in terms of total budget for digital marketing, you figure out how much of it is allocated to social media, and you see that what percentage of the total digital media budget it is. Then you figure out what are you allocating for each of the channels that you've identified from the previous exercise. So let's say you figure out that, hey, my target audience are on these three channels, and these are the behaviors that I'm expecting them to give me, and this is the way I'm going to split my allocated budget amongst these three channels, or 5 channels, or 10 channels. It's very important. Like I've seen many marketers do this, where they get a budget, they know that a certain thing has worked, they keep doing that, they do not experiment, they do not test. They're happy with what's happening until one day the expected outcome just fails. The expected outcome just fails. Even doesn't anymore gives you the response that you are expecting, and then you're stuck. You always have to set a portion, like anywhere from 10 to 15% as the test and experimental budgets, so that you're trying out new things for a new channel or within the same channel, because all these channels are undergoing upgrades day by day. Like the way you spend money to reach an audience, the way you basically promote some of the content. Every day, newer options are coming up, newer targeting options are being thrown at you, so you always have to set aside a percentage for test and experimental budgets. And then the final question is, how much of this budget am I going to split for branding and for performance? See, most marketers, I mean, branding is like a very nice thing to have. Performance is what you are measured upon. So, and unfortunately, both of this go hand in hand, and you would think that, yeah, branding is just, you know, I just let people know that this is my brand, this is what I do, but that's not going to give me the performance. I need to push for people doing certain actions, right? Signing up a web form, or coming and downloading a case study, or coming and sending a query for the product. So these are performance metrics. Always ensure that there is a healthy split between branding and performance, because pure performance will not give you the upper funnel that you require for the longer run. Okay, so far we've done the objective, we've set the audience, we've taken the budget. So I think you know that where this is heading, right? I'm just going to have a quick look at. Okay, so there is someone who's not able to hear and might come back. So anyway, so look at the questions window. Please knock in your questions there. I will take them as it comes. And as part of the OABC PPP framework, we've seen the objective, we've seen the audience, and we've seen the budget. And next, the most used term in social media marketing, which is content, right? And a good way to many marketers lose it at this point in time, because they've you're so overwhelmed as to the different types of content that you can put up on the web. And you go like, oh shucks, what do I put in there? What do I put in there? They lose track of everything, and most of the disasters on social media marketing happens because you're not disciplined about the questions on content. So first you need to establish what the sources of your content are. From where are you getting this content? Is it from specific sources? Is it purely internal, self-created every day? Or is it a mix of both? You need to establish this as a policy. The second thing is how far is the content pipeline you're going to set. So I've seen both kinds of marketers, one doing basically, if today content has to go in, they wake up that day morning and they figure out, okay, hey, yeah, I've designed something, let's put it up, let's see how people react. Well, if it works, but you just have to wait for a day you fall sick, and suddenly your content pipeline goes kaput. So a healthy content pipeline is anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months. I've seen bigger players have content pipeline stock for 3 months. If you are an independent social media consultant, or if you aspire to be one, the depth of your pipeline as to how many days of content you have ready as of today, puts you on a higher scale, saying that, hey, I work on a 3-week content pipeline, which say like, wow, that is awesome. So this doesn't mean this is fixed or hard. It just says that how prepared you are. Then there are these daily tweaks that you do depending on the trends or some new news that comes in, that you tweak your content a little. But having a content pipeline is the biggest form of discipline that you could bring in under the content set of the framework. Then how is your content calendar constructed? Now, pipeline is the volume of content. The calendar is nothing but where it could be as simple as an Excel sheet, right? Where all you have to do is, on your, you list down the channels, you list down the days, and you know that which channels will be used for pumping content on which day, right? So having a content calendar is very important. I've seen most people operate by channel. Oh, this person is the Facebook guy, he's the Twitter guy, he's that guy, and that's it. Each one is doing their own thing, but it's good to have a unified view, as simple as an Excel sheet, where you are tracking which days of the week for which channels is content going to be pumped in there, right? And what is the process flow for paid ads? Now, the problem with paid ads content is you have allocated the budgets. Now you figured out that each channel, how much money is it going to get. But then you also need to figure out what process that you need to follow to promote something. So this goes in line with, let's say, the head of digital who is allocated certain money to social media, but you also need to understand what are other non-social media channels being used for, what content is being promoted there. You don't want to be the lone wolf. You need to go hand in hand with the other channels in terms of the content. So figuring out the process of which gets promoted and which does not get promoted is important. Now the last question for this sample set is basically goes in line with the content calendar, is the content frequency. Now many times there are a lot of third-party analytics tools that tells you what is like a good frequency. I mean, when the days you posted so many times, you're having good engagements. If you don't want to spam your people, nor you don't want to be the person who comes once a year like Santa Claus, right? You want to be the person to figure out the exact optimum frequency of content with a nice pipeline, with a good source, with a good setup of the content calendar, and then figure out the paid ads process flow you're set in terms of content. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick check at the questions. All right, so I think I'll take this one. I got this question from Alejandro Correa. When you talk about expected behavior, do you mean sad, happy? What do you mean with expected behavior? There's sorry for that, perception. So expected behavior is not the emotion, right? So I've seen people bring it up saying that, hey, How do you measure your audience behavior? If they are excited, if they're happy, if you're sad. You know, we obviously don't have metrics or webcams on each laptop to figure out if an audience actually had a positive reaction or a negative reaction. But what we do have is, if I am coming up with content on social media, if I am coming up with initiatives on social media, I expect the audience to take a certain journey. When I say this journey, it is the person should first know that my brand is so and so. Then I expect that person to come and read up about my features or read up about my product or come and participate as part of a poll or an initiative that you run. You are defining the audience journey. You are not trying to catch up. So when you've said that, when I say expected behavior, you are trying to define an audience journey and waiting to see if they're following the journey. That's what I meant about expected behavior. The other quick one is some websites or apps which help in content frequency analytics. See, trust me, Google is your best friend. All you have to do is just get in there and whichever channel, because it is very channel specific. These are not generic. Social media is just a bunch of channels, right? Choose a particular channel, just say that particular channel and analytics. I mean, there are social bakers, they're simply measured. There is social samosa. There are a lot of these analytics tools that just ask you for permission to connect to your page. It immediately tells you what is the output that you have been doing, and it gives you a recommendation that, hey, this is what you should be doing as against what you're already doing. Perfect. And I think I'll take one more question and then head back to the presentation, which is okay, content pipeline, is it related with structure of content or steps or what? Okay, see, content pipeline, as I said, is, think about PR, right? Public relations. So when I'm working with an agency to do PR for me, basically come up with newspaper articles, I ask them, what is the content pipeline? Which means how many articles you have ready, or for how long into the future that you have articles ready. Like they will say, I have 10 articles ready, but we will use it over the next 3 months, which means they are already prepared. We are not preparing on the go. So when I say content pipeline, is the volume of content in the back, right? So that's what. So it's not the structure of content, it is the content itself, right? And when you talk about content frequency, the time zone as targeted region specifically. So Shank has a question which speaks about, when you talk about content frequency, the time zone as targeted region specifically. The question is a little unclear, but when I mention content frequency, it is just about how many times am I posting content every day by channel. That's it. Nothing else. That's all I say. And the last one from Shivani, who asked, like, how is social media marketing different from digital media? Can I call it a subset of the latter? You're absolutely right. Social media marketing is a subset of digital media marketing. Digital media lists down the channels as display, paid search, paid social, organic search, organic social, video. I mean, all of this comes under digital marketing. So basically, social media is just one part of it, but then the future is social media will definitely take over the entire digital media budgets. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to go back to our framework. As so far we've seen OABC, which is setting objectives, figuring out your audience, the budgets after that, and then now you saw this about content, right? Let me just close the question window. I bet anyone who's already working on social media would not have, would hardly have heard about this term, or would have. This is more like, you know, the bad boy of social media marketing, which is coming up with a policy, right? A policy helps you in terms of contingencies, which happens all the time on social media. I mean, there is no way you will escape contingencies until and unless you have a policy, because it is real time and there is always, you're not going to be the only person tracking all day. There's so many people. So until and unless a policy is set, basically you will not be able to handle contingencies that arises out of this channel. So some example sample questions for the policy itself is who puts up the content, like who is the actual person who's going to put up the content, who responds to the audience that you are targeting or reaching. If they come back with there is user generated content or user generated comments, who responds to them? And how do you handle negative engagement? This is a golden question you need to answer yourself. People think by just not responding is the best defense to a negative engagement. Trust me, on social media marketing, every engagement, so as they say, there's nothing called as bad publicity. Every publicity is good. So the same way, engagement, every engagement is an opportunity, and you need to come out with a policy for figuring out what, how would you handle if at all someone's engaging in a negative way. What is the way you will guide them in the audience journey to convert them to positive? Then what are the guidelines for content? This is very important to set up pretty early, because the content guidelines will help you a little more disciplined in terms of coming up with a content calendar, content pipeline. Otherwise, I've seen brands completely lose their identity by going in terms of all types of content. You cannot put a certain character, you cannot put a certain persona to this person. So, which is very important to have. What are the guidelines you'll set in terms of the content you're creating itself? And the holy metric for your entire social media efforts, marketing efforts, is how much time do you take to respond, right? So it is very important to put this down. It is more as a vision. You need not be achieving it right now, but it is very important that you put this down. So a good example is 8 hours, 12 hours, like within 24 hours. So if someone engages with you or your brand, you have to say that, okay, I strive to go back to that person within this point in time. Most big brands, if you see, their policy states this in terms of how quick am I able to engage or respond back to a particular audience, right? So that is the first of awesome. That is the P for policy. The second thing is persona. Persona, some people have cracked it. Some people have completely don't understand, what persona, what are you talking about, right? Now, remember, when you're getting into social media marketing, it is not just about figuring out your audience. It's not about having money to spend. It's not about all of this policy, etc. If you want to be the successful social media marketing guy, as against their peers who are also in the same field, it's your ability to create a unique, identifiable persona for your brand or for your product on social media channels, which means you're making the whole presence as a person. Imagine, so you are able to draw, when you talk about person, a person has behavior, a person has voice, a person has character. So you have to figure out, what is this identity I want to create? What are the brand values? What are the product values? So if Apple is innovation, you will see everything that they do on social media, you will get the sense of innovation. If it's Apollo, if it's about, if it's healthcare, then you know that their values are more about caring, about precaution, prevention. So there will be a touch of voice, there will be a touch of this in all the content they're coming up. So you have to figure out, you don't have to figure out the values, you basically have to turn the values of your product, turn the values of your brand into the content that you're generating as a pipeline and as part of what you're using for engagement. What is a character map? A character map is more like, are you like the brash kid out there? Or, are you representing a brand who's like let's say a Red Bull? Red Bull wants to do crazy stuff, wants to do adventurous stuff, which means your character has certain values. I mean, your brand has certain values. You tie these together, and everything that you do on social media should be extensions of it. So you come out with this. Everything that you do there in terms of content is very adventurous. The way you respond to people is, you have the tonality that extends these values. So it's very important to be able to create this persona across all the channels that you handle. And for once, you need to go back to your audience and find out, hey, and not even find out, just kind of understand, are they perceiving your voice the same way you want them to perceive you, right? So you basically go to the other side of the table and you're saying, is my brand being perceived as, okay, am I adventurous, or is they're like they're not, am I the innovative kind, am I the daring kind, am I the fun kind? So figure out a persona audit is always helpful. Go back to your audience and using other ways and figure out that if this is the voice that you are displaying back to them. So as I said, this is the definition. This defines whether you can be the top-notch social media marketing guy or a consultant or in your job, or if you're just one of those normal execution of social media marketing. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly check on the questions. Lorraine Carrasco asks me examples of my work. There are many brands that I've worked with in terms of coming to life when they've just started. I think a good example to take would be there's this brand called Hero Talkies. So if you take this brand, what they do is they show Tamil movies to an audience which is not belonging locally. When I say that, Tamil is a language in the south of India, and basically all the new movies, think of it as a Netflix, right? So it is basically the Netflix for Tamil movies, but just that the local people cannot view it because it's being screened on the, it's being shown on the screens. So we have to reach out to people who are not in India, which is task one, and task two is coming out with a character of, hey, we are films, we are fun. You can watch in the couch, sit in your couch, back in your room, and watch movies just the same way you're experiencing in the theaters. We bring the blockbuster movies to your home. So think everything Netflix, but for a localized audience. So everywhere in terms of content, first I will go through the same framework, right? I set the objectives, I figure out who my audience is, and I figure out what is the money that they're willing to spend. Then I figure out what is the content calendar, and I ensure that my content reflects some of these brand values. Then I go into the persona where I say that I need to be fun, I need to come out with excitement. So we come out with short movies, we come out with rap content, anything that excites people the same way they get excited with movies. So that's just to kind of get you like heads up. There is another brand that I really enjoyed working called the Go Cartel, which basically is about group buying of things. So then you know that it is all about saving, then you again go through the framework, answer these questions, it sets you up. So some examples specific to personas, so it's group mentality, it's saving. So you need to do things that are like group. So all initiatives on social media marketing were surrounded by, how do people collectively participate to get something. So you're sending out a strong message of what we're trying to do as a product. I'll take one last question before I jump, which is from Prashant Varshni, asking about, can you please elaborate perceived voice? Okay, here's the thing. I've been talking to you guys for the last, close to 40 minutes, which is almost the end of the webinar time, but there is a certain perception you have about me right now. Now that is perceived voice. Now I don't know what it is, but I would like to believe, hey, I want to come across as this guy who's very elaborative, who's able to give content, and who's able to make it simple. So these are all the things I have in my mind while doing this webinar. And then there is a perceived voice, which is you as the audience are listening to me, and what do you think? Now, is it matching what I think and what you guys are thinking? If it's a match, then perfect. The only way to know this is possibly I'll call one of you guys and ask you, hey, what did you think about the webinar? Like, how did it go? Now, the things that you say, if it coincides with my expectations, then great. So that is a good analogy I could throw at you for perceived voice. All right, so let's jump right back. In interestingly, I've spoken to you for so long, like I've told you about the objectives, I've told you about the audience, I've told you about the budget, I've told you about the content, I've told you about the policy, I've told you about persona. But then what is the final one? It's the pick, because you cannot afford to do anything that you've done so far without you choosing your metrics, right? Now, first up, you need to come, I mean, after doing all of this, you say that, hey, these are the metrics I will continuously report, track, and use for my progress. What are the conversion types? So conversion doesn't mean sales all the time. Conversion could just mean someone coming and signing up a web form. Conversion could mean just someone coming up and participating in a survey. Someone coming and basically sending in a query to you saying, I want to know more. So you have to figure out what conversion types will you pick to be tracked as part of the measure, because this directly ties back to the performance metrics. And what dollar value? So for example, let's say you sell, let's say you're a reseller of, you're a close competitor for Apple, you come up with a new brand of phones, right? Now, person buying a phone is the ultimate conversion. Now, let's say there are a lot of intermediate steps which you make people do, which you also measure as conversions. What is the dollar value you would put to those conversion types? Let's say if 100 leads, 100 people sign up the lead form, I get 5 purchases. So you have a value of these 5 purchases. You have to track back and say that, okay, what is the dollar value I'll put for each of these lead forms? So that is important. And in terms of all this that you picked so far, which is you pick the metrics, you pick the conversion types, you figure out what is the dollar value you'll set for each of these conversion types. You also need to understand what insights you will draw by choosing all of this. If you're not clear about this is the insight I wish to take, but I'm just going to be the reporting guy, you know what, you will fail. You will absolutely fail. The most difficult part is figuring out what insights I will draw from the metrics that I've chosen to track. And finally, how is this insights from these metrics going to flow back into whatever we discussed so far, right? So kind of that completes the framework itself. So as I said, try this at home. I mean, it's very simple. Pick any brand. There are 2 ways to do this. If you're already working under social media marketing, you can go ahead and say that, you know, let me just answer these set of questions as part of this framework and see if there's anything I'm not answered, or if I have more questions under each of this, let me just add them to the set and keep it ready. Bang. It just keeps you disciplined, it keeps you going on, and no matter how many upgrades or changes happens in the social media landscape, you will be safe. But if you're just new to the space, you want to understand this whole thing, then just pick up any brand out there. Pick up, let's say, an Amazon or a Flipkart. Now go through these set of questions and try to get answers from their presence on each of the social media channels. You'll be amazed how you'll be able to draw out that this is exactly what they've been doing. Oh, this is the content. This is the type of this is the frequency that they have. This is the voice that they're coming out with. This is the presence that they have. This is the amount of money that they're spending. So that kind of, you know, validates that yes, this works, and it is simple to remember. So any given day someone wants to just, you know, branch out and say, I want to be a social media marketing consultant from so on, then you just start answering this framework with any client that you have. Perfect. So now I'm going to pop out the question window and check how we have. All right, we are all set. So thank you very much for joining me on the webinar. And as you said, the webinar has been recorded and it will be shared back with you as a link by Edreka. So thanks for making time. I hope you can take this learning back and improve upon your existing efforts, or if you're new to this, it's a great Kickstarter to go straight up the ladder and figure things out in terms of social media marketing. Pleasure being with you and always happy to help. Cheers, man. Take care.